Isolation leads to growth. Isolation leads to growth. Isolation leads to growth. Here's the thing. Isolation is the perfect time for you to expand and grow, right? It's the perfect opportunity for you to grow. But what's most important is what you do when isolated. What are you doing while you're isolated? That's what determines whether or not you grow or not. Case in point, in sports, coaches often call timeouts because they want to isolate their team. They realize that their team is not playing the way they're supposed to be playing. They want to reinforce the foundation or the rules, so they call a timeout to isolate their team. But what determines whether or not that was a good or a bad timeout? It all depends on how well the players play after the timeout, my friend. What are you doing when you're isolated? Here's 3 reasons why isolation is the perfect time to grow. Yes, when you're isolated. Number 1, here's the thing. See, isolation puts your true character on display. See, when you're isolated, ain't no fronting, because isolation removes anyone or anything else for you to blame. It's you versus you. Ain't no excuses when you're isolated. And number 2, here's the thing. Never allow periods of isolation to make you bitter. No, we all must first get uncomfortable in order to get comfortable. Trust the process. Never allow periods of isolation to make you bitter, but instead use those periods of isolation to make you better, my friend. It all depends on what you do while you're isolated. And number 3, here's the thing. You got to develop a greatness mindset. Yes, you do. A mind bold enough to believe that isolation brings you closer to you, right? Isolation makes you realize that the battle is you versus you, because isolation reveals that all of the answers to life problems are in the mirror. But are you bold enough to accept what you see? Do that work while you're isolated, my friend. Don't be afraid to get lost for a couple years. I lost everything. Chapter 7, bankruptcy. I said 7. God told me to go down to 0. I ain't at 0 no more. Isolation leads to growth. Never forget, you were born to be great.